Part 1. Pride. All men make mistakes, but a good man yields when he knows his course is wrong and repairs the evil. The only sin is pride. Sophocles. Escape. Seth Ardvale wasn't aware of what woke him. He only remembered the fading dream of a rumbling sound that shook his bones. He sat up on his lonely cot in the brig, deep in the bowels of the Empyrean, and rubbed his eyes. He listened for voices. Sometimes he could catch hints about what was going on from the chatter of his guards, but there was no sound at all. This isolation was part of his punishment, along with the lights being kept on 24 hours a day. Seth had come to accept that it might be a very long time before he was out of the brig. If Kieran Alden stayed captain of the Empyrean, Seth might never get out. He supposed he deserved imprisonment, not just for the failed mutiny he'd staged against Kieran. He deserved to be here because of who he was. "I'm my father's son," he said aloud. The sound of his own voice startled him. He hated that he'd begun talking to himself, but that was how to survive solitary confinement. He had long internal conversations, and he always imagined talking to the same person, Waverly Marshall. He would close his eyes and see her on the other side of the bars to his cell, sitting on the floor, her hands wrapped around an ankle, chin leaning on her knee. The conversation always picked up where they'd left off a month before, after he'd asked her to get him out of the brig. She'd only looked at him, a haunting hesitation in her deep brown eyes, the rest of her lovely features smooth and expressionless. He knew her well enough to see she didn't trust him, and could he blame her? After the way he'd behaved? "Get me out of here," he said, pleading, a hand on one of the cold bars between them. She looked at him for a long time before finally saying, through a long, exhaled breath, "I can't do that." And she'd gotten up and walked away. Could he blame her? He'd staged a mutiny against her boyfriend, Kieran Alden, had thrown him in the brig, withheld food from him, and, some would say, tried to kill him. It had all made sense to Seth at the time. That's how crazy he'd been. The time had been crazy. Out of nowhere, the New Horizon had attacked the Empyrean, taken all the girls, and caused a containment leak in the reactors that ended up killing Seth's father. But that didn't excuse him. All the kids on the Empyrean had lost parents, or were separated from them. All of them had terrifying responsibilities to run the ship without a single functional adult on board. Among them, Seth Ardvale had the lone distinction of acting like a sociopath. "Maybe that's what I am," he whispered, then covered his mouth with his hand. Waverly had been right to walk away. But he still imagined a million different things he could have said to get her to stay. "You're right. You shouldn't risk it." Or, "I understand you can't betray Kieran." Or simply, "Don't go." Then, he'd imagine how she would look as she turned back to him, how he might make her smile or even laugh, how she'd tuck her hair behind her ear just before glancing away again, a small, demure gesture that pierced his heart every time she did it. But he'd said nothing that day. In his shame, he'd let her leave. If he ever did get out of here, he'd show her he could be a good person. It didn't matter that he could never have her. He just couldn't stand the thought of her thinking badly of him. And maybe, just maybe, he could help her too. Because whatever had happened to her on the New Horizon had pulled her downward, bent her back, hollowed out her eyes. If he could see her again, he'd take nothing from her. He wanted nothing. He just wanted to help, be a friend.